Hello again, everybody. Hope everyone's having a fantastic start to the week. I thought I would hop on here and just give a little bit of a Shaw Classic recap. So, I got in Thursday night from a short vacation in Ireland after Giants Live last weekend. And it was really interesting feeling going into it. As I said in my preview video, this was the comp where I could fall apart. It's a very challenging setup with me with heavier weights, with short rest times, with a lot of jet lag going on. And my first real professional experience of having those type of adverse circumstances around. So got in Thursday night, and huge hats off to Brian and Carrie, who put on a fantastic show. And we were taken care of from start to finish, and definitely huge contributor to why I was able to pull up the way I was. We went through the athletes meeting, nothing really revolutionary there except for the particulars on the car leg press. As you guys saw, we had to have our feet in a very specific position that we determined, and our knees were measured at 9 degrees, etc., etc. Now, to run through the events, day one, we started off with the Hummer tire deadlift. I was a bit concerned about this with the max deadlift last week, and then the nature of my deadlift. I'm not as strong at lockout as I am off the floor, and we're really just going to lockout. And 900 felt awesome, 950 was good, 1000 was good, 1050 was good, and 1100 was very, very close. But I still picked up really good points on that. Huge hats off to Alexi, who is the best deadlifter above the knee. I think that the world's ever seen. I mean, he set the world record in a couple of lifts there now. Then we moved on to I believe bag toss was next. Bag toss I was looking forward to. I'd never done it before at this level. My warm-ups were all good, everything was solid. But I need to start to learn how to take myself from 6th gear into 5th gear when things get a bit heavier, because I went out as though I needed to finish the bags in 20 seconds or something. And from the first bag, I threw it. It was well high enough, but I just threw it from way too far away. I think if I were to take my time in this event, I could have done a little bit better. I ended up with 5 bags, and that gave me 7 points, which I believe had me finishing in 8th place or something like that. Knocked me down quite a bit in the standings, which, I was disappointed in that performance because I knew that I could do more. But huge learning experience. Really good to get that out of the way. Then we had the yoke. I've said it for a while now that yoke is my favorite event, that's my best event. And I think I was able to prove it with a little over 500 kilo yoke, 20 meters in 11 seconds. Pretty happy with that. The only downside was I started cramping halfway through, which anyone who saw the live stream, I'm not hurt in any way. It's just I started to seize up, which I believe is a product of the travel, nutrition, hydration. Put my body through a lot, and that's one of the ways it was communicating to me that it probably had enough. That's really the only thing I'm still dealing with is my right calf. If anyone sees me hobbling around, it's just seizing up on me. I'm not injured in any way, and I imagine in a couple of days it'll be gone. So I won the yoke by 4 seconds, I believe. There was a lot of really good performances on yoke. Then we finished up day one with the dumbbell. 4 weeks ago, 110 was my best dumbbell, and we were doing that for reps. In gaining the experience on the different type of dumbbell, not the plate loaded one, but the larger round one, I was really optimistic coming into this event. I did 120 for 3 in training. Then we get to these dumbbells, and I saw this at the event before, at the orientation before the comp started. These dumbbells had handles as thick as Coke cans, and normally I'm like here, and my hand was really, really wide. So I was a bit worried about that, but the best person to talk to when you're worried about anything is Alexi, because Alexi will just say, no, it's fine, it's the same. So I was not too sure how that would go. I ended up getting 5 reps, very narrowly missed a 6th, and rushed a second attempt at a 6 as I was running out of time. I think a little bit smoother, a little bit more efficient. I would have had definitely 6 and likely 7, and that's something I'll chase moving forward. But I was very, very happy with that result. I believe that put me in a tie for 3rd in that event. And going into day 2, I was in 3rd, half a point ahead of Brian, and well behind Trey and Alexi. Then day 2, we started off with the log press, where we had a 170 log, a 185 log, and a 200 kilo log. And any rep on a heavier log beats everything at the lighter logs. Now, I was planning on going straight to the 200 log and getting a single out of that, maybe a double towards the end of the time running out. But with the benefit of going fairly late with my performance in the dumbbell, I saw a lot of guys not performing to where you would expect them to. Bobby had an unfortunate event on the log, and he hedged his bets and went for the 200 right away like I was going to, and didn't work out for him. Evan had some troubles on the log. There wasn't really anyone who was, by the time I went up, anyone who pressed the 200. And I knew that I could put myself in the lead with only a couple of people to go in the lead aside from Brian, who did 2 reps at 185. By pressing the 185 once very quickly, because it was time marked. If 2 people did 1 rep at 185, the person who did it faster would win. So I started at the 185. I put that up basically as I expected to. Then I went around to the 200 log, and the crowd was absolutely fantastic throughout the event. But this was probably the best. This was probably the best atmosphere of the entire time. When I walked around to the 200 log, everyone was standing up, going wild. Hats off to the crowd. You really pushed us through a very, very difficult set of events. Really taxing weekend. I got the 200 log really, really, really close. I think if I started on it, it definitely would have been there. But you can see my back is so arched. It's just at that point. If you gave me another inch, I could have locked that out, no problem. But it was very close, just not there. I went back, gave the 185 another crack, but at that stage I was far too fatigued from the attempt at 200. And I believe that put me in 3rd spot on the log with a quick rep at 185. Then we went on to the Medley, and the Medley was a 800-pound frame and a 700-pound sort of arm over arm, but it was ratcheted, so we didn't have to always have the tension on the rope. I was dealing with this guy, and that's always a concern when it comes to any type of grip event. Thankfully, the frame was not too bad. I was able to run through that, no issue. Then that arm over arm was so heavy, really, really heavy. I got a few good pulls on it, and then just a bit inefficient. There's 2 strategies. You could either pull in like this or wrap your one arm around and then pull. Obviously, wrapping around takes half a second longer, but creates much more friction around your arm, and you're able to pull better. So learning experience, I probably costed myself 10 seconds or so in trying with my hands too much. Regardless, I did okay in that. I think I got 11 points or so. Came somewhere around 4th in that event. And Alexi had a bit of an unfortunate issue there where he didn't get the frame very far. Trey had a bit of an issue there as well. And that sort of opened the door. And going into stones, I was... not going into stones, going into the car leg press. I was tied with Alexi for 3rd, and I was a handful of points behind Brian and Trey. I think maybe 3 behind Brian, 5 behind Trey, something like that. Then the car leg press. This was a really interesting one, and I think strongmen need to be a little bit more adaptable, and we've seen that when we had 1 pad in the leg press, and we see that in the car leg press as well. And I know it was tough for the viewers to watch, but we were told a lot of times that your butt had to be on the pad, that you had to try to control the car on the way down, and that you couldn't rush the press, as in you couldn't bounce the car off the safety and up. In terms of the load, it was not too bad. It was lighter than what I did in training, and it really felt pretty good. The most challenging bit was having ref to the side and behind and to the other side, all watching different things. One giving the press command, one watching your butt on the seat, and one seeing how much you control the car down. And to clear things up, the controlling the car down bit was nothing to do with performance, it was to do with the safety, where if you just kept slamming the car over and over and over, it's fairly untested on how strong is that car up on the leg press. So they just made that call. And a couple of my reps were lowered down a bit faster than they should be, and you'll see as I was going, that's why I looked over at the ref, because he was reminding me, and it was got in my ear. But the reason that some guys didn't get called for reps was not because they brought the car down too fast, but because they pushed after they bounced the car. So the car would bounce, and then they'd go instead of waiting for the press command. Saw a couple of comments on that, so I just thought I'd clear that one up. I did really well in this. I was very confident going in. Good handful of guys weren't able to get it up. I was able to get 7, which at the time put me in the lead. And basically I had the idea where I knew Alexi had 1. There was a handful of guys between 1 and 6. I knew if I got 7, that put me in really good points. I knew Brian would probably beat me regardless of how many I did, and I still had to be fresh enough for stones. So I got 7, that put me in second. Brian got 8. And going into the final event, I was 7 points ahead of Alexi, and I was 3.5 points behind Brian and Trey, who were tied for first at the time. Going into the stones, my tacky got confiscated in my travels, so I did what any intelligent person would do, and I went to the most intelligent person in the area in the room. I said, Brian, what tacky are you using, and can I use it? So I tried some different tacky, and it was not really applying very well. And this has been historically my issue with the stones. A little bit inefficient, slipping on stones, that type of stuff. But from my performance at Worlds to my performance at Royal Albert Hall to Cardiff, I've been making strides every comp, and I was just hoping to continue that momentum. I knew with Alexi 7 points behind that it was unlikely that he would catch me. The thing is, Alexi would be capable of winning the stones, and the stones would be the tiebreaker. And in that field, you've got Alexi, Brian, Trey, Max, Kevin Ferris, Gabriel Pena went out and finished the stones. I think when we went up, most guys had finished them, and it's a pretty heavy set of stones. So I knew I had to finish the stones to really lock in my spot, and goal was just to be as smooth and efficient as I could be. So these started at 156 kilos, went up to 206 kilos, or 450 pounds. I made my way through these pretty well, and pretty smooth, pretty efficient. Tacky was perfect, had no issues at all, and the stones had no issues either. I think the biggest difference between this one and every other stone run I've done is that I didn't have to sprint one to the next, and that allowed me half a second just to make sure I was in the right spot, to be a little bit more methodical about it. If you watch, I used Max's technique where I didn't muck about the stone at all. I just wide hands, grabbed it and lifted. So I'm trying to learn from all the other guys as well. I think big takeaway to continue improving on stones is how fast Trey is out of the lap, where he laps the stone, gets onto it and extends right away, and then probably improving my one motions. But I got 5 stones done in 35 seconds, which put me in the lead before Brian and Trey went up. The best part about this is I beat my stone run time in Royal Albert Hall, which started with stones 37 kilos lighter than the ones we were using here. So my performance on that is just getting better and better and better. And it went from making sure that I secured 3rd to putting a little bit of pressure on Brian and Trey, because if they didn't finish the 5th, then I would have jumped either of them. Only issue being they're a couple of the best stone lifters in the world, so I didn't really have any ambition of that. But that put me in 3rd. They both had great runs. I was happy for that. Put me in 3rd, and I took home the 3rd place, which is my 3rd podium in a row, and haven't missed a podium since Worlds. Really, really happy to keep that momentum going. It was first comp that I didn't have any family here, which was a little bit tougher, a little bit unfortunate, but getting to know more and more of the guys, so that makes things much nicer. So yeah, body's in one piece for the most part. Definitely sore, definitely need some time to recover, and we'll go from there. Again, Brian and Carrie and their team did a fantastic job taking care of all of us. Really, really pleased with everything this weekend. We're headed off in 7 minutes to go ATVing up at Brian's place, spend a bit more time with the guys, and yeah, we'll go from there. Hats off to Trey. Trey was very, very hard to beat this weekend, and there's nowhere to hide in this comp. And you know, Trey had one difficult event. Otherwise, he was, I believe, top 3 in almost every single event. So hats off to him. He deserved this victory, big time. And Brian, I told Brian he's doing pretty good for a guy who's washed up, coming second in a comp like that with all the stresses around organizing it and making sure everything's running smooth as well. So that's that. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Continue to like, comment, subscribe, share this around, and lift heavy, be kind. We'll see you next time.